Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Andrew, and I'm your guide for this video series that I'm creating for real estate investors. Today we're going to pick up where we left off with the vendor details window, and this will be the final part in this sub-series, the mini-series, if you will, of our overall series on how to use QuickBooks if you're a real estate investor. So I'm going to start where we left off, and I'm going to go to the vendor center and go to Dewey, Cheatham and Howe, which is who I have set up for this sample vendor. And we've done the first 4 tabs here, and now we're to additional info. And the only thing that's included in this tab that should be of any relevance, really, unless you're very advanced, is this vendor type. When I say very advanced, I mean custom fields. And I'm very advanced. I don't use custom fields. So it's not likely that you will need to use those. But I do want to go over vendor type because it can be useful. However, it's really for those people who have a lot of vendors, maybe a lot of transactions, or who very much want to be detailed. If you want to be very detailed, then this is for you. But if it's not for you, I just want you to understand what it is anyway. So for each vendor, I can select a type or a category of what they are. I can be as detailed with these names as I want. If I wanted to say add a new type, and if I wanted to say legal services, I could say OK. I can also make it a subtype of any of these other categories. So if I wanted to say service providers, then I could maybe just shorten that to legal and say OK. So you can see there's an indentation under service providers, which means that it's a sub-account. You can really choose these however you want. Default settings for QuickBooks is consultant, service providers, suppliers, supplies, and tax agency. So I'm going to go with legal. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to show you 2 other things about it, because it doesn't really matter that much in your day-to-day activity in QuickBooks. First thing I want to show you is where those categories are stored and how you can delete or add new ones. And if we go up here to lists in the top menu bar, come down to customer and vendor profile lists, which will then expand to give you another menu, and you'll find vendor type list. And this just lists basically everything that was in that drop down box as I was going through it, so we have the same vendor types here. So I'm just going to delete supplies. I don't like that. I don't ever use it. So boom, gone. Tax agency, I don't like the fact that the A is lowercase, so I'm going to change tax agency, and I'm going to control enter. I can make these inactive if you want to. You probably won't ever have to deal with that. If you wanted to add a new vendor, you could just go down here to the vendor type menu and new, or use the shortcut key Control N. Vendor type, say we wanted to have contractor as a vendor. Okay, then we have that. You can get as detailed as you want. Maybe you wanted to say utility. Okay, we want vendor type. Maybe we want a sub account of utility. Maybe we want the waterworks, and that's a subtype of utility. You can get as detailed as you want. I don't really recommend being that detailed here. Just think general vendor type is probably good enough. Utility itself is a little detailed. Waterworks, probably don't need that. So I'm gonna delete that. I just did Control D. Okay, so now you know where to find it. Vendor type list. So I'll go back and show you how that flows through. If my computer will hurry up. So go back into Dewey, Cheatham and Howe, who we were working with, and the additional info, vendor type. Now you'll see that tax agency is fixed, supplies is gone, and I've added utility as well. I'm going to keep that as legal. I'm going to click OK. Now, having a vendor type is really only good when when you want to run a report, and you want to run a report and drill down by vendor type what you owe that person. So I'm just going to use an example, and that's going to be vendor balance summary. I'm going to pull open this report. You can see that I owe Dewey, Cheatham and Howe $1,000. I entered a bill for that before this video, and I also made another vendor called Larry's Landscaping, and I owe that vendor $320. Now, there's not a whole lot going on with this report, but I can customize it by choosing this button in the upper left, and then I can apply some filters by going to the Filter tab, and I can filter it by, what do you know, vendor type. So if I had a huge amount of law firms, or I had if I got in a lot of legal trouble and I wanted to see quickly, or I wanted to give somebody a report and I only wanted to include my legal vendor type, my service providers in legal, I could do that. So I've chosen a filter here. I just hit V to get to vendor type, and I've selected my vendor type, and then I can see that I have all these. I have two filters now. I had one before, which was accounts payable, and now I have this other filter, which is vendor type. If I click OK, look at that. Now just Dewey, Cheatham and Howe is shown, and I can give this report to someone, maybe an associate or an accountant, without showing them everything. So if I go back to Customize Report, go back to Filters, and then I remove this selected filter, or maybe, yeah, so if I remove this filter and I go back, and then there's Larry's Landscaping. So I've applied that filter to only show that vendor type. That's really what it's useful for, which is pretty specific for most of you, your average users. You're probably not going to need to drill down to be that specific, but if you're very anal and you like to have details, you need to have details in, then put them in. There's no harm in categorizing your vendors into vendor types. You never know, you might need it in the future, and you might want to have a report done with those vendor types, so you don't have to go back and enter it in. You don't have to go back and enter it in for a lot of vendors. But for your average person, I don't recommend doing it. It's not really worth your time. There always is a balance of time versus effectiveness and just getting the information. So in terms of effectiveness, you don't need a vendor type inputted. But I just wanted to show you a little bit more about it. Most people don't know what that is or what it can do. So that's it for this video. That is it for this mini-series about vendor details. We've now gone through and addressed each one of these tabs in the vendor edit window, which is what I'm in now. So hopefully that clears things up for you, that addresses questions you might have for each one of these. If not, send me an email and I'll try to do a video with your specific problem. Or leave me a comment. Email is better, but leave me a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. Like the video if you thought it was useful. If you thought it was crappy, put the thumbs down. So anyway, look for more videos in the future, and I will see you next time.